reference before I even jump into the minutes. I don't know if you two are
I-
willing to do one or the other. Yeah, I know you,
I can do the reference, that's fine.
okay.
I'll do whatever you need to do.
So how about the Pledge of Allegiance?
I can do that.
Do either of you have any conflicts of interest before we even start? I mean, we'll ask that in the meeting, but
Well, I was accused of one at the last planning commission meeting.
how about this meeting?
I do not.
Okay,
I may be accused of the same thing, but
I do not.
I don't.
okay, here we go. Careful now, walk up here very careful.
Yeah,
This is your new member?
yeah.
So this is Lisa Northrup. Have you, probably haven't had a chance to meet her yet?
No.
Well, he did a long time ago, but he just doesn't know
Where
that.
was that?
I'm Theo's daughter.
Oh, sure. Okay, I have met you then.
If I just say that,
I am Theo's daughter.
That does be great. How's Theo doing?
he's surviving.
That's not a real roaring accolade.
Still leading the irrigation company, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
Still
was
doing
here
that.
2 months ago.
He's all right. He stays busy enough, I guess.
okay, so Lisa, what we've done is we've already have someone for the prayer and
Okay.
lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, so we've already taken care of that.
Sorry.
And of course, with you reviewing the minutes, I don't know if there's anything there that you would have had any questions on or anything like
No,
that.
they looked, that's everything the way I remembered them, so. The notes that I took, they matched up, so.
Okay. And then if we move down to the city business, do any of you have any questions on what those agenda items, have any questions on those agenda items? Their application for a rezone. Hello, Brad.
How are you?
Good.
I'm good, thanks. How about you?
As we are thinking about this rezone, do they have a representative? They needed to have. They most likely will. Okay,
Yeah, Tracy will review all of that for us
okay,
when we get to that item.
okay.
Hey, Brett.
Oh, we've got a quorum here, so we're gonna be good to go here at 7.
Good.
How about the Morning Meadows subdivision? Does anyone, excuse me, anyone have any questions on that?
So, so can I bring up I did highlight some things when we get there.
Yeah, if you have some questions on that.
So I did speak with Jolie Taylor about, the water, and he said, yeah, they do have a letter, saying they will do what they. Then I also highlighted, should we bring that up, or,
Shall we review that now?
yeah, or should we wait?
Okay, so which part?
So in section 2, it's on page 3, actually. It's up to you if you want it. So it says, this note also applies to any utility connection in a state highway. It was recently overlaid and the city does not have any say in UDOT road cut requirements. The permit requirements must match public works requirements. It says the permit will be supplied. This comment from Public Works is intended to reinforce the need to ensure that the encroachment permit that will be obtained from UDOT to work in the highway will provide for an appropriate method for making the connection to the vacuum sewer and other utilities. It says okay,
Yeah.
so
Well,
what is the okay?
the okay means that the developer or their engineer cannot get a permit to be in the highway. That requires a contractor, okay?
Okay.
And their engineer told me multiple times, the contractor will go in and just basically say, look, we can't do this without cutting the road. Well, at this point in time, I don't necessarily believe that, so I contacted their engineer again today and said, look, what do you have from UDOT that's gonna give us some assurance you'll be able to cut the road? This afternoon, they responded to Jared and I, and neither one of us could respond because we were both in the middle of something else, that UDOT needs a letter from us, basically saying, you cannot build this vacuum sewer line to tie it in without open cutting the road. And they claimed that, but you know, we couldn't write the letter at 5 o'clock
Oh,
tonight or
absolutely.
anything else, so. But our feeling at the time we okayed that was, look, you're not gonna be able to come and have a pre-construction meeting with us unless you're able to come and tell us that you've got this encroachment permit that says you can open cut the road. So whether if you pass them tonight with that condition or you don't pass them, it's not up to me, but if you pass them with that condition, they still can't do anything. They can't come to us and schedule a pre-construction meeting until they've got something from UDOT that says, all right, we agree you can cut the road. So,
But how long have they known they have needed this? From,
well, you know,
obviously it was in the planning commission packet.
now say that again?
It was in the planning commission packet, so I mean, this
Well, yeah, but
is,
nobody brought it up, and I didn't bring it up because I'd already okayed them. To me, I was like, okay, well, you know, you can't get the permit to cut the road anyway, a contractor has to. And so we were like, okay, so you have to have that before you start building anything, or we won't let you even come and hold a pre-construction meeting. Now, we're kind of like, well, maybe we need to have something for, and we weren't gonna get anything for tonight, because neither Jared and I were gonna write a letter at 5 o'clock, we weren't available, and so you can do whatever you'd like to
Okay.
do, but either way, they're not gonna be able to start on this until they
Right.
have that, so.
But I think, you know, just reading from what your remarks or your comments, it's pretty clear that the developer knew that he had to
Well, yeah,
open cut
yeah.
right.
the road because that's what's gonna
But they
take to hook up the
can't do
sewer.
that until they have a contractor. The contractor has to apply for that permit, correct?
Yeah, but, you know, yeah, but now that I've kind of forced the issue, they've gone back and UDOT has said, well, we can probably give you written permission to do that now if you get the letter from the city. Well, we just learned that this afternoon. But, you know, that's not gonna be that big of a deal either, but, you know, it's just one of those things that you can deal with it now, but we weren't gonna let anything happen anyway,
Well,
at whatever time.
It's just-
Stop at the construction, there's no pre-construction meeting
No.
until it's done, so.
No, because without it, you don't have sewer service, so.
right. But, I mean, to me, this is one thing that we're trying to make sure these things are all cleaned
Well,
up
but, yeah,
and signed
you know,
on.
and in fairness to them,
before-
I okayed the thing because I knew that they weren't gonna be able to do anything until we gave them the okay to build it, so. And maybe that's not fair, maybe that's my fault and Jared's fault, but we both said, let's just move this on and we can't, we can't get anything until the contractor's in there trying to get permission. That's what I was told, that's the way I've always dealt with UDOT. Now, after the fact, to find out if we'd have written a letter, we probably could have had something earlier.
Okay. But it's not gonna hold them up if we table it until we receive that, till we have that.
I don't know when they plan to start anything,
Well,
so, yeah,
okay.
One way or another, they're going to need the letter.
yeah.
Okay.
And then, I guess I know things have changed on the irrigation because they now own property to the west.
Yeah, but nothing about what they're planning to do is different. It's on the plan just the way it always has been.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But now
Okay.
that they acquired that property, they no longer have the issue of the slope or the,
No, they don't. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, there's another little change that I recommended at the planning commission that they've made that I'll show you tonight, so
Oh, okay.
I'll show you how that works.
Okay. Well, and it did say that the city has received signed documentation from all the water users indicating that they've reviewed all the
I've
plans.
seen all those letters, there was half a dozen of them,
Okay.
so I think you had a letter in there, or maybe you did, somebody.
Yeah, no, yeah, well,
and that was just for the main access for those who still irrigate, they needed to have the access still to the,
No, basically what it said is we agree with how they decide, they plan to serve our property with
okay.
continuing irrigation water to us, so, yeah.
those were the two things I had questions on.
Anyone else have any questions on either of the two agenda items?
What, this stub road at the northern end of it, is that what it, is that the spot that connects to the quail?
Quill, whatever.
Okay.
Or whatever that last phase is.
Well, Cove.
Well, Cove, yep.
Right.
Meadow, Estates, Cove,
Right.
from north to south.
Oh, okay, so are you talking about the new drawing showing the relationship between the storm drain outfall from Morning Meadows, and that's what was changed in the planning commission?
No, I'm talking about their temporary turnaround.
Oh, okay, oh, all right.
And I'll show you that.
Oh, let's hope it's better than the ones that are in
That was
play.
already planned, I mean, that's nothing new for.
Well, they had the temporary turnaround on the plat that was gonna impact properties or lots. And now
Right.
they own the property next door, they can put it on their own property and
Right,
not,
okay.
not impact the lots.
And is the worry or the problem with the basin being the right height, the correct height, so there's not standing water, that's all been taken care of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Anything else? So I have some information and I kind of wanted to ask a few questions from the city councilors about the ramp grants. So we had a meeting on Monday and decided what to apply for. And the major grant, which is worth up to $200,000, the main grant that we're going to apply for there is pickleball courts. And to go along with that, a parking lot. And I believe the basketball hoops, correct?
right.
So we were talking about that being over here on the west side. And so we're hoping to get the money for that, from that grant, for pickleball courts, basketball courts, and the parking lot. And then I guess my question was, we allocated 250,000? 200 for the pickleball courts. Because the major grant is due January 17th, but the others they haven't even given a date for, because I don't think they know what, what money's available, whatever. So the next one is a Parks and Recreation grant, and we really wanted to get a playground. We're gonna apply for a small Bowery, and then maybe some benches along back here. So what would you think about using, if we did get the major grant, using that $200,000 for the pickleball courts to cover the Parks and Rec grants, if we don't get grants for that? Is that, can we just say
They'll
we're gonna,
fund it.
Say that again?
so we already, in our budget, it's set aside for pickleball court. Can we just say, we've got pickleball court money, so now can we use this money for
Oh, yeah, you can amend your budget.
Okay,
Yeah,
so, okay.
Yeah, and
You can amend it.
And so,
I'm good with that. I think, let's see how that major grant plays out.
Yeah.
And then if, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
okay,
I would probably,
I mean, without the grant, we can't really do anything,
Can't do
right?
it
I mean,
anyway,
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
yeah,
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 you don't want it to leak out to the grant folks, you've already appropriated money for it, because they'll say, well, they don't need it. So
Exactly.
you want to be careful with that.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Anybody here?
Don't
Catch
it?
that?
Did not hear that.
Okay. Well, we,
So that maybe ought to be in a recreation fund or something, not specifically earmarked.
oh,
So it's just in the budget.
Yeah, it's-
Capital
Oh,
project.
okay.
under
Okay.
it.
So it's not specifically.
that, I guess that's just what we've talked about then,
Okay.
okay.
Talking
And
point
it's, they
That's-
gather more
okay.
information to do the grants, and then make final decisions, those will come to you to like submit for that, and then as we get those, then we'll start to use up that money in that fund for specific items.
Okay, perfect, okay.
Yeah, it does give us a little reason of concern when there's not even a date to apply for some of the money. You know, usually they have cutoff dates by by the time the grants have to be applied for, and other than that major one, there's not any dates for any of the others. And then Cindy, you have, the rest of them are just from what we've done. Yeah, if you want to-
Right, so then the arts and museums, we already received the Gentry grant, and since we didn't use it, we'll use that this year. And then we're going to apply for a message center and historic markers. And then there's easy grants, and one of them was upgrade the power at the Bowery.
In the other
And
part.
you laugh, you know. And we didn't even come up with any others, so that's something, if somebody sees a need for something that's not very expensive, or we didn't worry about it because, like I say, we don't even have a date for those. So we'll probably figure those out after the first of the year.
So if you walk out here in the daylight, you'll see a lot more of the cement's poured, the sidewalks are put in. The Bowery now has cement underneath it. I mean, I think they all look really nice, and the bathrooms now are all up and running. And I think they all look really good, so.
I guess, I don't know if you want me to tell them so Sherry got some bids from Renner Sports, and they did the pickleball courts at that Smith Park. And he said, sounds like they would work with this, really well. So,
Are the basketball courts and the pickleball court all in one, like some places have, or are they separate?
Yeah, they were all in one. They're all in. all
One
together.
area.
Yeah, in one area.
Okay, but it's not like, because I've seen some places where they have the basketball hoops at the end of the pickleball courts.
That's kind of, the pictures that we looked at, that's how they were designed.
Okay,
But you could play racquetball, pickleball, and basketball at the same time. So it's not
yeah,
like
they were,
they are separate courts.
I guess look at the court up there, at that
Yeah.
park, it's very similar to that.
okay, yeah, I've been there.
So.
Okay.
Well, if we don't have a very long agenda, this is, anything else?
I appreciate, I saw that you sent the Public Works guys out to the ballpark and got that turned up. I drove by and
Oh, down at the other park, yes, the baseball diamond.
Yeah.
it definitely looked good. The tough thing is that the sticker weeds, even though we turned it up,
Yeah,
are still, like I wouldn't want to play there still. But
there's,
You didn't take your shoes off.
I would
And
not
run
run
across
across it
it.
right now.
To check it out.
That is one item, as you lived out here for a while, and that ballpark is one that gets used a little bit, but we really don't tend to give it much love, and since it's been there, I don't think anyone's really given it much love. That might be a project we could look at to maybe bring in some different dirt.
I was gonna say, it's gonna need, because you can't,
It kind of needs to be scraped probably, and then have something brought into,
all right.
I don't know. Yeah,
Count votes or?
it needs some work.
Those stickers were
Right.
not even 5 or 6 years ago, they're every day.
That's what I think. It's all supposed to
So
fix the
it's an
problem.
ongoing
It's
problem.
all your fault.
That's what they say.
But I know that dirt's been rocky, and it is 3 years past, so maybe that's one of the things we
It's
look at.
probably the original.
It's probably.
It's probably never had dirt run into the field, it's probably the original.
Yeah, miraculously. huh?
Well, there was a day when that ball diamond was used a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Do we still have the home run fences for it? Do you know?
I don't know.
Well, the LDS church still, you know,
Right.
they bought
All those
the
panels.
chain link
that
home run
short.
fences for out the back there, but I've never seen them put up for years.
I don't know that I've seen them really ever in like any of the
Storage places, right?
places.
I wonder where they went.
Well, I didn't ever have to worry about the home run
I was gonna
fence,
say,
so,
I guess we just don't get home
some of
runs
us didn't
anymore.
work.
When you're playing out,
Well, it definitely wasn't fast enough
Yeah,
for those days, as I recall.
Then, just so you guys know, so the general plan survey will go out tomorrow or Saturday. And, the website's been updated, and then there was a Facebook post for, where people can go to take the survey online if they want, and then to also, join the focus group if they want. So that's all on there, if you guys wanna share that,
Awesome.
for your constituents.
Yeah, we hope that, there's a real good response on that survey. And we might make mention, to the plan is even after this first survey, if we, once we get information back from it, we might, we plan to send another survey out that's a little more detailed, you know, so that we're trying to really focus on, getting some information back that's really usable, you know, that really lets, the planning commission and council know just what, how the citizens of Hooper envision Hooper over the next 10, 15, 20 years, so.
to mail out to everyone.
Yeah, it's going out by mail.
It's both, it's both. So
Oh,
there's a direct link to a survey online for people to take it online, and then also in the next coming days, they'll receive an actual mailer in their mail, so they can do either one. Hopefully we get responses more on the survey online, but it will be sent out both. And this is just the baseline survey, like the committee, or the advisory committee has talked about, so this is the baseline, and there's specific questions in there that help us get answers directed towards specific districts, so that we can see areas that want certain things and areas that don't. And then we'll kind of collect all that data and then run it back.
What's this road right here? 46?
4,600. I still don't see how you keep your glasses from fogging up.
It's impossible. It's impossible.
Take them all.
Take one.
Yeah.
Yeah, either way I can.
I wish it had somebody set the clock back.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. You feel like you've already been here an hour?
Ryan, did you, have any questions on the minutes? We asked that a little earlier and, you know, okay.
Are we planning on, if our numbers keep going up, are we planning on going to Zoom again or something, or what are we gonna do? They're record high right now,
Yeah.
as far as that. I don't know if we had a plan, if you thought about that.
We have, in fact, we talked about it this afternoon. We tried a combination of having an in-chamber kind of meeting plus Zoom, and it didn't work.
It doesn't
very
work,
well.
yeah. Yeah, Fire Commission tried that 2 times and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work well.
But I think if things continue like they are, we could go Zoom. If everybody's just on a computer, then it works pretty well. And I guess the only weakness in that is just how many people we'd like to have input from a lot of people, and hopefully a lot of the community would still sign on to that. But I think that works pretty well. You know, if we do just Zoom and everybody's on Zoom, right, Sean? I mean, that,
Right, yeah, we unfortunately just don't have the facilities or the equipment to do like a half in chamber and half Zoom or televised meeting. So it's really, it would be either just all Zoom, and then, or just in chamber.
Yeah.
So there's some cities that are doing that, Lisa? Or,
Doing like half and half.
yeah,
Yeah, like, similar to like, Weber County. Their chamber and their electronic setup allows them to have the proper equipment to have, like, you know, people in chamber and then, like, people can watch through the TV and then also speak to the TV. But we just don't currently have the capabilities with our current wiring system and the systems that we have. We tried it once with our, general plan advisory committee and it was just terrible. Yeah, so it didn't really work at all. But we have the capabilities to do just Zoom, if we wanted to go back to just Zoom meetings.
well, the CARES money that you get, it's a good chance to upgrade to whatever you need to do. There's
We
all that
do.
money and you, I don't know if you're getting another batch or not, but if you do.
We should get 2 more.
no, we're on our third.
Oh, yeah.
So, no, we have the money, to do that. If we
You
want
gotta
to upgrade
create
that.
an amazing system here, well, you got justification to do it, it seems to me.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
No, and we actually, have someone coming in from one of the state contracted, I don't know, equipment specialists. They're coming in next week. So they'll help us kind of see how we can upgrade our system, but I mean, like everything else, it'll just take time. Even if we get the system, we'll have to have it installed. Those are separate processes. So kind of in the works, but it still will take some time to get all that fixed.
I mean, the recommendation's 10 people, right? Isn't that, or does the city get out of that somehow?
Well, they're allowing, so that's a private meetings, is what they're saying, 10.
Right.
But like churches are going on, 100 or less. So it depends on the type of function you're at.
Oh, okay.
So we are encouraging everyone to social distance 6 feet, and everyone should have on a face mask. So tonight, we are in compliance with everything, provided everybody's 6 feet apart unless you're family, so.
So for you two.
My wife said they'll have to walk down the hallway and the kids.
Cool.
Like, this is
Short
not-
parts.
I was really good at wearing a mask, but that's a nightmare.
Okay, we wish to welcome everyone here to the Clipper City Council meeting for Thursday, November 5th, 2020. And it is 7 p.m., so we will begin. We've asked Councilman Paulson if he will lead us in a pledge of allegiance, and then following him, Councilman Cox will lead us in a reverence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're indeed grateful for the many blessings that we enjoy. We're grateful for the blessings of this city, this state, and this country. Please help us that we can realize those blessings and do those things that we can to avoid contention and those things that cause problems in the country and in our city and our state. Please bless those that are suffering from the effects of the virus. Help us that we can do our part to overcome it, and bless us that we can help those that are in need and prevent it. We're grateful for, again, for all those many blessings that we enjoy. Watch over us and guide us. These things we pray for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you to each of you for taking care of that. First, we'll ask each member of the council if any of you have any conflicts of interest, and if pertaining to the items of business tonight, and if you have, we would just have you disclose those at this time. Okay, seeing that? Okay. So if each of you had a chance to review the minutes from October the 15th, if you've reviewed that, do you see any corrections or amendments that need to be made? And if not, then we would entertain a motion to approve those.
I didn't either. Looked good. So,
So if we have,
we all liked them, so I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from our October 15th meeting.
okay, we have a motion and a second from Councilman Cox and Councilman Paulson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the minutes from October 15th, 2020 are approved. Okay, at this time, we'll actually open this up, the meeting up for a citizen's comment. If you had a chance to review the agenda, if you have any comments that you would like to make concerning those items, we'll open it up now for citizens' comments and just encourage you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. So we'll invite you to the microphone, and if you'll state your name and your address.
Hi, good evening. My name is Matt Mollick. I live at 6161 West, 5950 South, here in Hooper. And what I'd like to address is the first item on the agenda, which is the Parkers rezoning. This has gone on for quite a while. I understand that, and I understand the family has a right to do what they want with their property, but that's to an extent. And the point I'd like to make there is, it is their property. They can sell it. I'm not saying that they can't. And I think they should if that's what they want to do, if that's how they need to settle inheritances or whatever else. But they put in a request. A request is not a demand. It's not a pay your price at the ticket counter and get your approval. It's a request. The citizens have spoken, and they've spoken pretty loudly. And you approved a resolution to stop rezoning, at least until the city plan is done. So, they can sell it. It's zoned R1 with an agricultural overlay, or at least it used to have an agricultural overlay. If they want to sell it and put 1 acre lots up, that's up to them. That's their land. But the citizens have said stop rezoning until we can get a good handle on what's going on with this city. And the point I'd like to make there is it's their land. Can they put a strip mall back there? A gas station? A Lowe's? No, because it's not zoned for it. It's also not zoned for R2. And the citizens have asked that we stop rezoning until we get a new plan in place that they have input to. So I would implore you not to rezone that land at this time. I've heard some councilmen say, well, I've heard no complaints. Well, A, you're either not listening or you're not going out and asking. Because I've had our councilmen over to our house. I've had our mayor over to our house, voicing concerns. There's been enough concern that you passed the resolution to stop rezoning. And you know what? To have compassion, maybe give them a bite next time they request to rezone after the city plan is done, and don't make them pay the fee. I think that's fair, because this has drug on. You do owe them an answer, but I would implore you to answer no at this time. Thank you.
I think you're all starting to get to know me too well. My name is Beverly Parker Bailey. I am a representative of H.L. Parker Farms. The request that was just referred to, our farm is at 6025 South, 5900 West. As you're aware, we have submitted a request for a rezone of some of our property. We originally submitted the request for 52 acres because the part that we want to develop was in a parcel that large, and we were advised to go ahead and get it all rezoned at the same time. But we were also told that the part that we want to rezone was in the general plan that was existing, and that it was reasonable for us to expect that it would be possible to rezone it to R2. I'd like to give you a little family background. Our great-grandfather, Edmund Parker, was one of the pioneers in Hooper. He helped dig the canal that brought the water to Hooper from the Weber River. He earned his land by doing that. Our grandfather bought his 12 siblings out in order to have ownership of the land, and then our dad, Lyle Parker, did the same. Our deed to that land goes back to 1870. That's a long time to have property in the family. So we feel like we're definitely old-timers in Hooper. Our dad also taught high school English for the Weber County School District for 30 years to support 7 kids. I'm the oldest of them. There was never enough money to support a family on the farm. He dreamed of having a large farm. So he was able to fulfill that dream with hard work. We are not outside developers. We care about Hooper. All of us have worked hard. I myself I taught school for 30 years. All of my siblings and my brothers worked 2 jobs. It's been suggested that because we don't all live in the city, we don't have a right to ask how our property is used. I'd like to make it clear that our family still owns 2 homes in Hooper. When we submitted this request, it was June 30th. It was before any mention was made of a change in the general plan. And we've waited 3 months for this to happen. We're willing to work with the city. We're willing to withdraw the 52-acre request to go to an 18-acre request. But we really do need to do this to be able to settle out some of our family inheritance. So I would respectfully request that you do give us permission to go ahead and rezone this property. Thank you.
My name is Ben Williams. I live at 6201 West, 5950 South, and I'm sure if you do the math on that real quick, you'll realize I'm here for the rezone also. When I was at the last meeting, there were 2 full pages of concerns to postpone, rezone. And, I mean, among those were schools. The high school is already using mobile units. It's overpopulated already, so, but I could go through that list, but the list was already there. You're fully aware of the list: sewer, infrastructure, maintenance, all that. So I personally think it would be irresponsible to go forward with the rezone because of those reasons till every single thing on that list is addressed. And to go forward, the advantages to the community of Hooper need to outweigh the disadvantages. It's pretty simple. So how is this good for the community to double the density of homes on that 18 acres? There are already too many concerns, so I think it'd be irresponsible to vote yes at this time on that. And if anyone on the board plans to vote yes, I would really love to hear the advantages to the city of what that is before anyone votes yes on that. So I'm asking for a no vote. Thank you.
My name is Martha Gunn. I live at 6235 West, 5950 South. And I am in total agreement with Williams and Mullis in regard to all of the items that were of concern on our last meeting agenda. And I simply want to say that I agree with everything that they have said, and also to urge you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Mayor and members of the city council, I'm Scott Carlson. I'm the civil engineer that's been hired to design the subdivision and assist with the requested rezone. As we work through the process with the planning commission, we spent about 3 months or more working and adjusting and accommodating the requests that have been made. Part of that was to change and only ask for 18 acres to be rezoned. This smaller 18-acre request was submitted in late August before the recent efforts to update the general plan were even announced. This rezone request was prepared in compliance with the current approved general plan. The proposed 18 acres fronts on 6300 West Street and is adjacent to the county line on the south and to the existing subdivision on the north. The east boundary of the rezone application is the rest of the Parker's field and will remain agricultural in this under this plan. The request is to rezone to a size that allow for lots similar to many of the homes in the surrounding area. This would only allow for about 25 to 30 residential lots, plus the roads that are needed for the subdivision. The preliminary sketches that we have anticipates a little cul-de-sac and a connecting loop road so that the lots would have good access for emergency services and into those homes. The development work anticipates building standard width roads with curb, gutter, and sidewalk. And the existing 6300 West Road portion that fronts on the subdivision would also be widened to city standards. These proposed large residential lots would comply with the requirements of the R2 zone, with very little chance of any impacts adverse to the city. These few lots will not cause traffic problems in the surrounding streets. There's plenty of capacity on these existing area roads. The Parkers have already spent a tremendous amount of money and are preparing to spend a lot of money to widen 5900 South and have already spent a lot of money on utilities in 6300 South to make sure that there's adequate resources and utilities for this project. Property values will improve, property tax collections will increase. These will be a benefit both to the city and to the school district and other taxing entities in the area. Given that the Parkers rezone was originally requested in June and then again in August, it supersedes the more recent changes being considered to the general plan and should be processed, reviewed, and accepted under the code that was in effect at the time it was filed. We request that you grant a positive response and rezone this property to R2. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ada Parker Bucher, and I just would like to draw your attention to an article entitled Public Policy Briefing, the Fundamental Right to Use One's Own Property. If you read this article, there is a brief summary at the beginning of the article, and I will read it just as I see it here. Property rights were an essential and fundamental pillar of the American becoming America. And their violation were among the reasons listed in the Declaration of Independence that justified separation from Great Britain and formation of a new country. These are fundamental rights. It goes on to say, unfortunately, governments at all levels of this country have become just as oppressive on this issue as the king once was. Property rights, though widely regarded as a core aspect of good government, are routinely subordinated in the interests of the state. They're frequently mentioned on campaign trails, it goes on, blah, blah, blah. While many states constitutionally, protect the right to acquire, possess, and protect property, no state recognizes the right to actually use it. This is the fundamental problem of why we're here, is because everyone has a right to own the land, but our government is dictating our right to use it. Now, I believe that we all want and need rules. We need them. That's what helps us to be a better people. But do we want those rules to dictate what we do with our land? Do you want to be told that you can't own an acre? Do you want to be told what you can or can't do with that acre or half acre? And for all of the people in this room and on this stand, I would like to know how many of them are actually running an acre. How many own an acre and how many are taking care of an acre? Because fundamentally speaking, an acre is a lot of land to take care of. I did it for 20 years, 25 years. And when I did it, my great dad, who ran, I don't know, 400 acres, said to me, when you're 50 years old, you're going to look at that acre yard and say to yourself, what the hell have you done? And I did. It's a lot of land to take care of, and if you look around at your acre yards, some of them are gorgeous, and I worked really hard to make sure mine was. But not all of them are. So fundamentally speaking, I have the right, my family has the right to do with their acreage what you have the right to do with yours. And our government shouldn't be the one to tell us what's wrong or right. We need to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Natalie Zulik, 5067 South, 5300 West. I want to echo what Matt and Ben both said. You know, the point, I want to point out that the stop of the rezone has already been approved. There's absolutely no point in approving this request on tonight's agenda. If you approve this tonight, you're going to set precedents. They're just not going to stop. The requests are going to keep coming in. If you say yes tonight, 2 weeks from now, somebody comes in and you say no, they're going to say, yeah, but you did it for the park judge. Why aren't you doing it for me? It must be discrimination. You have a whole new problem on your hands. Ms. Parker said that they need, she emphasized the word need to rezone to sell the property. I don't believe that they need to decrease the size of the lots to sell it. Property on Hooper is so much sought after, and it will sell absolutely immediately. Anybody here has even remotely familiar with social media can see that everybody here, everybody wants to move to Hooper and they want an acre lot. And everything that I've seen, they just want those acre lots. I want to address Ms. here, she said that she, got the acre lots. How big they are, and they're a problem to take care of and all that. Well, if you don't want an acre, you shouldn't buy it. You just shouldn't buy it. That doesn't mean that you need to rezone. It does not mean that if you have a half acre, you're going to take care of it any better than you're going to take care of the acre. If you don't take care of your property, it doesn't matter what size it is. It doesn't matter how big your house is. It doesn't matter how small it is. If you're not going to take care of it, you're not going to take care of it. I think a couple meetings ago, somebody made the comment about, well, people just can't afford those acres. Well, I couldn't afford my acre either when I was younger, and we all stopped and we all worked hard for it. And that's what people need to do. It's not my issue. If people can't afford it, then don't come down here. I'm sorry, that sounds harsh, but that's the way it is. Life just isn't fair sometimes. So I would also implore the city council to listen to your citizens. The majority of the people here tonight have already said they don't want it. They don't want this rezone. Like I said, social media. Dan and I talked about social media just today. Get on social media. If you're not going to go out and talk to your citizens in person that's in your district, get on social media and watch it, and you'll see what your citizens want.
Can I speak again? Is it okay if I speak again?
No.
No,
No, I can't speak again.
not against Beverly, but
It's like the answers to her things.
In here. My name is Mayla Parker. I'm a widow of Curtis Parker, the oldest brother of the Parker family. And I just wanted to say, my husband and I raised our 3 sons here. Curtis grew up his whole life in Hooper, and I don't think there's anyone who cared more about Hooper and this community and life here than my husband did. And Beverly and the others in the family have worked hard to try to make this so that it can help the family now. 2 of the brothers have already passed away. And I don't know, people, when they say about an acre, realize what it's like to have a whole farm in a place where another farmer can't afford to come and buy it at its value, or where the siblings are dying off, and like how do you resolve that? And like Beverly said, ones in the family can't afford to run that big amount. Meantime, property taxes go up and up, water goes up and up, and those who come out and want a nice little farming community think that's easy for someone else to hold on to a whole farm when some of the family has died. But they need to take into consideration that we're only thinking of our families and we still want what's best for Hooper. We're trying to do what's best. And and I know you have families too, and if you were in our same situation, on how do you resolve that to help your family, and yet it's like you can't keep it from going just so the neighbors are pleased to have a big view out their window or a few fewer houses. Thank you.
My name is Sandy Malik. I'm at 6161 West, 5950 South. Again, we're not asking or telling anyone that they can't build. They can build the 1 acre lots. We're just asking for a little bit of privacy. That picture that she had up right before we walked in, that red line and that green line, that's our backyard. Their backyard, their backyard, their backyard. I don't have a history here. I'm trying to make a history here. I don't have an inheritance. All I have is my house. That's it. And it's about to be destroyed by half-acre lots. All of us around have 1 acre lots. That's all we're asking. They want to build 1 acre lots, go ahead, build the 1 acre lots, but please do not rezone this. We're going to lose everything that we have. That is our backyard. It's our peace, it's our privacy. Horses, our dogs, our stars. All we're asking is just a space, just a little bit of space. They can build those 1 acre lots, but not half-acre lots, please. Thank you.
Scott and I, 6181 West, 4700 South. I would encourage the city council to not rezone this. By show of hands of you guys, how many of you were out there when we took that vote out there? You had an open meeting out there on the bleachers and listened to the citizens when you opened up the master plan. None of you? There's a few of you I seen there, but I don't know if I seen everybody. If you remember that night, 89% of the people that got up and spoke said, let's freeze everything. Let's go with, we want to keep Hooper as a rural community, and we want 1 acre lots. Let's hold off and not rezone or do all this other stuff until we have the master plan looked at. That was the majority of your citizens, your constituents. I think you need to listen to your constituents. I moved out here because I wanted a big lot. There's advantages to big lots. Number one, I can have a fight with the wife and neighbor can't hear me. I'm just joking. I'm glad she's not here. She'd throw something at me. But no, I enjoy big lots. When I came out here, Hooper told me, the mayor and the city council said, Hooper's going to stay with 1 acre lots. We're not going to go lower. That was back in '02. Now we've changed. Okay? We don't want the smaller lots. We're not against the farmer selling their ground. We enjoy the farmer out there. I love hearing that tractor. I love smelling horses and cows. Beautiful area down here. We want it to stay that way. And there'd be great people that move into on 1 acre lots. Another thing, there's a comment that big lots, they're hard to take care of, and they're not taken care of, and there's weeds and everything. Well, you know what? I can drive around and I can show you that there's small lots that look the same way. It's the person that's owning that ground. Do I still have time?
Just a little bit, about 30 seconds.
Okay, I didn't see your sign.
Oh, yeah.
But hey, I encourage you to hold off and don't rezone. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other citizens' comments? Okay, at this time, we'll close the citizens' comments and we'll bring it back to the council. So our first item of city business is the rezone from R1 to R2 of the H.L. Parker Farms at approximately 6050 south, 6300 west of 18.1 acres. So Tracy, if you'll...
You really need anything?
I think it would be beneficial to put that picture up where they refer to that, if you can.
So, let me just, I don't know if I can even jump ahead here. I'll just go to this slide because this was submitted by the Parker family. So this is 5900 south, 6300 west. This area that's highlighted in green is the 18 acres. and they've included their meets and bounds description on there to help pinpoint exactly where that is. Just to add this little bit of history, the Parkers did come in August and requested a rezone for this entire 52 acres. At that time, they were tabled, and the Planning Commission said, we're gonna table you to November with the intent that by that time they'd have something to say about the general plan. Okay. Shortly thereafter, like within a week or two, the Parkers submitted this request for 18 acres to be rezoned. And so that was, it was within the time frame before the discussion had opened relative to the general plan. So that's why they're still on the agenda, and they have mentioned that the 52-acre request is off the table. This came before the Planning Commission in October. Very similar discussion, and the discussion amongst the Planning Commission, where there were a couple that were strongly in favor of waiting because of the general plan that was now open and being discussed, and there were two others that were strongly in favor of moving forward because of some of the arguments you've heard here in favor. When it came down at 2-2, the Planning Commission chairperson ended up breaking the tie to recommend in favor of the rezone. So that's the history, that's what got you here tonight, and with everything else has been said, I don't really have anything else to add, so I just wanted to bring up the picture and hold it there.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. So at this time, we'll, we would invite someone to represent the H.L. Parker rezone request and have you come up, and then the council can ask you any questions that we might have and be part of the discussion that we have.
Tracy, do you have a slide of the land use map, the current land use map? Could we look at that?
I don't know if you can see that. All of this area is in the land use is that medium density land use that gives the right to be able to make the request to change to R2. And then this is the zoning map right here. All of that there is zoned R2, including the frontage along here where the Parkers just did their 8-lot development, and then this lighter yellow where this property is zoned R1.
So applying to it then, coming this way is R2 already?
Everything here in this darker, in this tan is R2 zone. Yes.
But again, we'll have, I know you already stated your name and address, but if you would do that, and then maybe we can ask you some questions.
I'm Scott Carlson, I'm the civil engineer. If you have technical related kind of questions, I can answer those. If you have family kind of questions, I'll defer to Beverly to answer any of those. But maybe the thing to share with you is and I suspect that you probably are quite aware, construction costs are extremely high. And to take a piece of land and divide it out and build roads in a subdivision, even just an 18-acre subdivision, we estimate that the roads and the utilities for that are likely to cost nearly $1.5 million. Serious investment to bring that in. In this area, there is sewer, and so there'll be costs associated with extending that sewer line into the subdivision. And to do that, I believe that it's better in a development to have sewer than it is to rely wholly on septic tanks. And having half-acre lots makes it possible to do that. The cost of selling or buying a half-acre lot versus a 1-acre lot, you just can't sell a 1
So let me ask you a question about that, Scott. So when you talk about the markets, I mean, have you looked at the markets for 1 acre lots?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you my reason for asking, but have you actually looked at the value and the market for 1 acre lots today?
Yes, we've got a realtor that's assisted in the process all along. And of course, you get about half as many lots. And the ability to sell a half-acre lot or a 1 acre lot for double the cost of a half-acre lot, it's just not there. People won't pay twice. And many times, people who buy a 1 acre lot have to then add a septic tank system, drain system after that, which costs them another 20 grand, and just keeps bumping up the cost of those 1 acre lots.
Well, you'd still be required to hook up to, you wouldn't be able to use septic tanks, you'd still use the sewer system
Right.
out here. But the reason I asked that is because I just attended a meeting Monday. And this was a real eye-opener to me, and it had to do with a representative from Northrop Grumman that's moving 5,700 employees to Hill Air Force Base. And one of the things that they made it specific, and the thing is that they're looking at for areas, it's not affordability of housing, it's availability of housing. And one of the things they told us, and again, this was an actual representative from there, this wasn't someone just representing this company, that they're looking for, these people that are coming in from all over the country, they're looking for an area that has a real rural atmosphere. I mean, they're trying to move from a place and get to a place that's more rural than where they've left. And this idea of acre lots came up, and that just seemed to be what they're looking for, or bigger. 1 acre or bigger. They want to have a few animals on their place, and things like that. So that's why I ask. It seems like that sometimes we think that, well, the only thing anybody ever wants is just a half-acre lot, and the whole city has to be made up of half-acre lots. But are we really looking at the fact that there are people who want to live in have a little more open space than bigger lots? And I just wondered if you really looked at that. And if not, I'll actually give you the name and telephone number of this fellow after the meeting, and just call and talk to him about that.
The experience that I have in most cities is that nobody's looking for a half-acre lot. They're all looking for an 8,000 square foot lot, a 6,000 square foot lot. Maybe if they've got a lot of money, they're looking for a third of an acre, right? That's what it is everywhere else. And that's a nice thing to have here in Hooper. When people come here and they get a half-acre lot, that's a really nice place for them. And really, most of the homes, there are some homes in this area that are on an acre lot, but most of them are half-acre. And this will fit really well in that area with half-acre lots. And it'll blend in. There'll be nice new homes, new styles, new standards, energy efficiency. All of those things will factor in to what people buy when they buy and build a new house on these lots.
Okay. Do any of you have any questions for Scott?
I have some questions on the widening of the roads. Well, it's mentioned that 5900 South would be widened. I don't see how that road can get any, it could be wider, but the houses are already so close.
I'm
To
talking
that.
about the 8 lots that the Parkers just subdivided on 5900 South. They'll be widening the road in front of those new lots.
Will that take up into the Parker property, or is that going to now infringe on the people on the north side of that?
No, it's coming on the Parker side of the road.
So is that then in turn going to make the road narrow at some point?
It'll make it wider in the frontage of the Parker's property.
Right, but just in those 8 acres.
In front of those lots, it'll be full city width all the way with curb and The existing road, the asphalt on the existing road is on the north half of the right of way, so all the widening will be on the south portion.
Hey, Lisa, for an example, look across the street,
Yeah.
4600 South. It's narrow and then it goes wide and then narrow again. That's what it'll be like.
Okay.
Yeah, but it'll be a widened section in front of those lots.
So I would expect that would also happen then on 6300 West.
Right, in front of the project frontage, where they actually own that property, it widened on 6300 to the full city standard.
Okay.
Widen is a bit of a misnomer. They build into the existing right-of-way that the city owns.
The existing right of way.
It's already the city's.
Yeah.
Okay.
The city owns the right-of-way, just the pavement on 5900 is not in the center of the right-of-way, it's way to the north. So when they put all those improvements along 59, or the same thing along 6300 West, they build right to the city's right-of-way, and it actually widens the pavement on that side.
Okay.
Doesn't really change the travel way.
Okay, the curb and gutter was mentioned.
Right.
Currently, those homes in that area do not have curb and gutter.
They don't.
And
That's true.
so, is that going to be something that,
City standard requires that all new subdivisions include city standard road widths,
right,
which includes.
but then that brings it to a stop prior to the next person's property. Are they going to have expenses down the road to have to join into that sidewalk, curb and gutter? Are they going to have to do that on their own expense?
You're asking it as if they get to decide that. It's really a
No,
decision.
that's what I'm just
they'll
trying to
make.
decide, it's like, okay, I have this curb and gutter, now it's coming to a stop.
That would be up to the city,
And this
or
is
whoever
what-
develops
right.
next.
Right, well, but those homes are already there. So you wouldn't be developing anymore because those homes are already there down to 6300, so you have the curb and gutter, it stops here. When the new subdivision
It'll stop.
that was to come in along the 6300 area, curb and gutter, just right there, just in that certain little spot.
Right now, we're requiring for one or two houses,
Okay.
which is just, you haven't been here, but I have an argument against that. I think it's lame that we're setting money aside for one or two or three lot subdivisions to have to put curb and gutter aside.
Right, because can I use myself as an example? In my,
Well, if you want.
can I do that legally?
No problem.
Well, when I had to subdivide my land, just to be able to build, that was one of the things that was brought up. It's like, well, I'm subdividing this little area. I have to have the right of ways. I have to have curb and gutter. And I was like, okay, but all 20 houses on my road do not have curb and gutter, but my house is going to have curb and gutter.
And you probably never will.
So, so I think that there's places and times where those things come to effect. Curb and gutters are great, sidewalks are great, it's safer for kids to walk and people to walk their dogs or whatever. But I'm just worried about how does that really fit in with the aesthetics of the area as it is.
You bring up a really good point. And certainly the development would be willing to build less. That's not the city standard.
It's
We're just,
ordinance.
Yeah, well, I know it's ordinance, but.
We are willing to follow the ordinance and build it in that
But
way.
I'm just saying, as we talk about rezoning and letting these developments come in, I know that's a concern for some people, it's like, why do we have it, why do we not have it, should we have it? And so,
We
I
have
don't
to
know.
change our policies.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, well, never mind, let's go on.
One other thing that you need to know about this property is that the Parker family has developed a set of CCNRs to ensure that the homes that are built are high-quality homes, and that they'll build it appropriate and that it will match all throughout their property. So they're not trying to get away with something that's going to look bad or just allow anybody to build whatever. They're requiring minimums and will hold to some really good standards.
Hey Scott, I just have a question. You talked about infrastructure costs and $1.5 million and sewer costs and all those kinds of things. Approximately, what would it cost if it stayed R1 compared to R2? And just in your mind, what kind of costs per lot would you imagine?
If there's R1, and we have 1 acre lots, there'd be a little bit less roads, because you have to have a bigger spot. possibly instead of $1.5 million, you might be $1.1 million, something like that. But it's certainly not going to drop to half, because you still have to get all the way through the project from one side to the other. So the length of the road is almost the same. Generally, you end up with more frontage on the road width when you have an acre. So now along that road, you're putting fewer lots, but you're still paying all the money to build the road and the curb and gutter and sidewalk.
So how much more do you think a 1 acre lot would cost versus the half acre lot? For the same infrastructure, same everything, just R2 to R1?
Yeah, in order to break even and have them be the same, because you couldn't sell as many, you'd have to ask for about 75 to 80% more in the sale price of a 1 acre lot than you would in a half acre lot. The market right now just isn't bearing that out very well. You can get a few, and there are some, and for those who can afford it, then there's a small market available for those size lots. But most people are having trouble affording that size of a lot. Once you buy the property and pay for all the utilities and the curb gutter and sidewalk and asphalt and everything that goes into it, it's pretty expensive to build.
Thank you.
One of the challenges for the lots that we have, those 8, is that they have to build the improvements on 5900 South, but there's only lots on one side. So they're, in that situation, they're only selling half of the lots because they don't have lots on the other side of the street. And because the asphalt is offset right away, the amount of new road that they have to build new asphalt is about 25 feet. So much more than you would normally think of as in a half of a road. So that's really expensive. It's about a $600,000 and some project just to do the front of those 8 lots. So it's adding up pretty quick. Turned out to be a pretty even job.
Thank you.
Any other questions I can answer?
No.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring this back to the council now for discussion. Any of you have any comments or?
So, one of the things that I want to point out is that when we were at the first planning commission meeting, when we started to talk about the general plan, the Parker subdivision had been tabled and moved out, and part of that discussion at that planning commission meeting was there was 2 subdivisions, I believe, Parker's and Fielding. And the discussion that I remember was that these guys had been working in good faith under the existing general plan. And because of that, no matter what was passed, we would look at that through the lenses of the existing allowance of the general plan that had existed during those submittals of those 2 subdivisions. And so, I guess, I understand the frustration and the stop and everything, but based on those discussions and based on the submittal of the planning commission at that time, I just want to say that I think we should be looking at that through the lens of what existed when they submitted, not what exists now. I don't think it changes our ability to stand firm when other zoning changes come before us that may not fall into the plan as we discussed at the resolution we made last meeting that stated we would limit and prohibit growth based on infrastructure and based on sewer, based on roads, all those things that we put in the resolution. I think they're very valuable, and I think we need to look at those through a very, tight lens moving forward, but I also believe that the Parker Farms was submitted prior to that lens. And so I just would say that I would support the change based on that viewpoint.
Well, and you're right, that was brought up, that, they did make the request before, but Tracy made a good point when he said, when you ask for a zoning change, you have the right to make that request. That does not necessarily mean you get the request, regardless of whether the general plan is open or not. And this city council, I was on at the time, has denied rezones for other things. So regardless of the general plan, this to me has a lot of other issues, a lot of other problems. Just some of the things that I highlighted, and I went through a lot of this. The surrounding area, and this comes from them. This comes from their submittal. The surrounding area is being developed to allow residential subdivisions. A 1 acre subdivision, 1 acre lots are a residential subdivision. I think they're trying to make it sound like they are not a residential subdivision. They are. The adjacent area is already residential. Okay, if you look at this map right up here that Tracy has up there, the road that those half-acre lots are on, can you see those? There's 8, they're new paper lots, and then there's the existing homes on half-acre lots. To get into this subdivision, they will be driving through 1 acre lots. So you're going to have half-acre lots, 1 acre lots, half-acre lots, and then when you get to the Davis County line, 10 acre lots. To me, that does not make sense. It's not, they continued the half-acre lots along that road. Another thing they have in their notes is the proposed zone change will be in harmony with development occurring in the area. I disagree with that. I mean, Davis County, 10 acres. There's acre lots right there. Another thing they said, no noticeable impact to environmental issues is to be expected. Roads in the area can still function safely and at high levels of service. I don't agree with that either. I think there will be an impact. Definitely there'll be an impact. So for those reasons, I would not vote to change the zoning.
I too had that highlighted, Cindy, the noticeable impact, and then with the 30 additional lots, I think that would have a very high impact in that area. And as on the map it shows, there's nothing really being developed right through that area of Hoover that borders up to that property. And so it's not in true harmony with the area to be smaller than an acre.
Another comment, the requested zone will provide opportunity to build homes on lot size for the current market. I think it's been pointed out that acre lots are also in the current market, so.
We have any other comments?
I think that there ought to be some stock put into that. Parker started this a while ago. Now, we would have approved this, I'm pretty sure, before. And I think that Chris has got this right, in that we would have approved this. And when we had the meeting outside and everybody got all riled up and all that stuff, and that was all fine and dandy, but Parker's came to that meeting and said, will this stop what we've already started? And the answer was no, that we would consider it. And I agree with Cindy that just because you have a request doesn't mean we need to approve it. But the fact of the matter is, because it got tabled in June or whatever, I don't know that that's their fault. You know, there was obviously some other stuff going on there, but I do believe, in fact, I'm pretty positive that we would have
the other issues would still be there, whether it's now or later, and do you not, I guess the half acre, 1 acre, and then to half acre, it just doesn't make sense to me.
I live in that, I live that right now, and the city's approved it. I have half acre lots east of me, I have acre lots where I live, and there's 100 and some acres being half acre lots west of me. That happens a lot throughout our town, and does it make me happy? No. Does it frustrate me? Yeah. I used to shoot ducks out there, pheasants? Yeah.
I'd have to ask you, Councilman, where are the half acre, where's there over 100 acres west of you that have been rezoned for half acre?
All of the Flint's property.
No, that
it
rezoning.
hasn't been. That hasn't been rezoned.
To half acres?
Right.
I thought
100,
on that.
how many, 100 and something acres?
There was 80 acres, I think. It was divided up by a wetlands line, but we did vote on that subdivision to change from R1 to R2.
Yeah.
And there's currently construction going on, that was a whole different discussion that
But-
we should talk about offline, but,
I don't think there's been a definitive amount that's been rezoned to half acre, because if I remember, it was stated the acreage, that with the half acre, the city will determine what's developable, and I don't believe they have yet, have you?
There hasn't been a definite amount yet.
Well, that
But
doesn't
anyway.
mean anything.
Well, I would like to know, this was tabled in August, right?
And I actually,
Why did we table this? Why did the?
Planning Commission did.
Table that?
Planning Commission did, not us.
tabled it because they wanted to see what was going on with the general plan, and then when we talked about the rules, so the one planning commission meeting, right, there was a proposal made to put a moratorium on growth, and that was the city council, the next meeting passed that, and then we revisited that and said the moratorium wasn't in compliance with state code. Therefore, we came back with a resolution that made sense for us to limit, right? Based on certain criteria, we had a resolution that says, we're gonna review each subdivision individually. However, when the Parker Farm was tabled, comment was, we're gonna hold off, but we will not hold them accountable to whatever the rules are over here, because this is the lens here, we just wanna see, we wanna take a breath for a second. And that's my only point is that the Parkers, we straight up told them that we would view them through the lens of that day. And it's, I get that we have a new lens. I don't see why we wouldn't honor what was said in those meetings at that time.
I do not believe that the only reason it was tabled was because of the general plan. I believe and there's not a planning commissioner here, but I believe there were other issues that were not being addressed over there is another reason for tabling it. I do not think it was just because of the general plan. And you say they're having the right to have it reviewed. Isn't that what we're doing? We're doing that. It's being reviewed on an individual basis.
Yeah, we are.
That doesn't mean.
So why did the planning commission, after tabling it, approve it last month?
3-2.
3-2.
Because they honored their
Exactly.
commitment. That's,
Because it was the right thing.
If there was a concern about it, they would have disapproved it.
Well, and 2 were concerned, and 1, I was at that meeting. 2 were against it, 2 were for it, and the one that made the deciding vote was the chairman, and her concern was legality. And I don't know where she felt it was not legal, but that was her stance.
So Reed, is there a pre-existing condition here that should be thought about?
Well, you don't have the restrictions that you have because of the resolution. It clearly was meant to be proactive and go forward. It was not meant to apply to things that were before. Now, that doesn't mean you can't look at this individually and say, we think those factors that we outlined are going to be significantly negatively impacted by this subdivision. But you gotta look at it that way. You can't do it generally and say if we allow a whole lot of subdivisions, it's gonna affect traffic, it's gonna affect all these other things. You've gotta do it based on this particular one.
So the original request came in June for 52 acres, is that correct?
Well, it came, and then it takes a while for them to actually get on an agenda. It was in the August meeting when it was reviewed.
So why did they change from 52 to 18 acres? What was the reason?
Because they realized that 52 acres, I didn't speak to them, I think they realized that 52 acres was probably a big ask, and they really only want to work on that east side, or that west side. They just, at some point in time, they'd received some counsel from somebody, I'll just come in and get the whole thing done now.
Okay.
I have no idea who that is, but, so that's what I've heard from them at meetings, that they really only intended to develop the west side there, those 18 acres, so.
Okay.
Are there any other comments from the council? I would like to make just one note that, when I look at this plan, an actual plan, the half-acre lots are along the road. But as soon as you get back off the road, they're all 1 acre lots. And again, as far as a plan, it seems like if you come off the road, drive past half acres, then you go through a 1 acre subdivision, and then go back to half acre. I mean, there was an original plan here, to where there were half acre lots along the road, but back in from, the newer subdivisions, I think there's some people that live in those, they were 1 acre lots, all the way around this property that we're considering now. So,
Have all of the half-acre lots along there sold, I wonder?
I don't know.
We haven't built them, and so they can't be sold yet.
That's the paper lots.
That would be actual, I
Yeah.
just thought, the half acre lots that were rezoned, that there were 8 lots.
That wasn't rezoned, actually.
What?
That piece, that had the 8 lots, that was already in the R2 zone.
Right.
Yeah. As was this
Okay.
piece along here.
So the 8 lots on 5900 South, refresh my memory, was that a subdivision?
Yes, it's
Yes.
called H.L. Parker Legacy subdivision.
Thank you.
H.L. Parker Farm Legacy.
And that's built out?
What's that?
Is it-
No.
That's this right
that-
here,
That's not right.
sorry.
No, that's these lots right here, and what Mr. Carlson said is they can't sell the lots because they're planning to build the improvements first, and then sign the plat after they build the improvements, as opposed to signing the plat now and escrowing all the funds for the city to hold to ensure that they build the improvements, so.
Are there any other comments from the council? Any other discussion? If not, then we entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we deny the rezone request from R1 to R2 for Parker, what's the proper name? Parker Legacy subdivision. Oh, sorry. The H.L. Parker Farms.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Cox that we deny the request for a rezone for H.L. Parker Farms Legacy. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that motion does not pass.
make a motion that we approve the new zone from R1 to R2 for HO Park and Farms, 6050 South, 6300 West.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilman Paulson and a second from Councilman Osler. All those in favor?
Aye.
So we have those in favor. Any opposed?
Opposed?
We have two opposed. So that motion passes.
Don't get the coffee, people. Zero.
All that, there's the word.
Stick around for that too. Stick around for that too.
Okay, next on the agenda we have final approval for Morning Meadows subdivision located at 4,000 South and 5350 West, 18.3 acres. Do we have anyone here representing Morning Meadows?
You want me to make a presentation?
Oh, excuse me, Tracy, yes, would you make a presentation on that?
Sure, happily. So this is Morning Meadows subdivision here for final plat approval. It's 29 lots in the R2 zone. Just to orient, this is 4,000 South, which is the state highway, SR 37, 5100 West, 5500 West. So it's this strange shaped piece right here. I highlighted just some of the other things that are going on in the area, just to give you some other reference of things you've already heard. Quail Cove is right up here, and it ties into Quail Estates, it goes up into Quail Meadows. Silver Saddle Phase 1 is preparing to get started. Skyview Estates is basically built out, and Alamora Estates was gone for a couple of years, and now they're talking about trying to get back in. And so that a lot of things happening in this area. So here's the plat for Morning Meadows, comes off of 4,000 South with a roadway that goes through and ties into the subdivisions to the north. There is a stub street that's provided to the property to the west. And everything on this plat has been reviewed in terms of its accuracy, and so from a plat standpoint to this 18.5 acre subdivision, 29 lots, is ready. This right up here in this corner is their stormwater detention basin, and so that actually is not a building lot. That will be dedicated to the city for stormwater detention. So this came before the Planning Commission in October, and these are some of the things that were discussed. The proposed lots meet or exceed all minimum dimensions as outlined in our Title 10 subdivision ordinance. We had will serve letters from Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion Energy. Those were actually provided during the preliminary process, and that they don't update that for any final approval letters have been received from Taylor West Weaver Water Improvement for culinary water, Fire District for all the things associated with fire protection, and from Hooper Irrigation Company. So all the items in the Public Works and Engineering memo from late September were shown as completed. There was, again, and I'll just mention this just so you can decide how to address this, there was again a detailed discussion regarding the stub street that was eliminated during the preliminary plat phase, and there was some intent to try to get recommended to have it added back in. In the end, that was not included in the Planning Commission motion, and so even though there was quite a bit of discussion about it, so it wasn't included in their recommendation to the City Council. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is during the Planning Commission meeting, I noticed that they had their temporary turnaround right here. And since the time that plat had been prepared, the same developer has purchased this property. And it turns out to be a much better way to do a fire truck turnaround if you do not build it to encumber the lots in the subdivision, if you can build it off the subdivision. And that's possible if the developer owns adjacent property. So I made that recommendation during the meeting, and the planning commission, they were hesitant, like, oh, we're gonna do something at the last minute. And my comment was, well, you don't need to do that, but the developer can easily come back in and ask for that after the fact, in which case, Public Works and Engineering are gonna say, we highly support that. And when I mentioned that, the planning commission said, okay, we'll go ahead and approve it with the condition that when it comes to the council, they have this moved off of these lots and onto their adjacent property. When you start building a turnaround into someone's lot that's paved for a fire truck, it's a kind of a big impact. And so we prefer it to be out of the subdivision on adjacent property where it's possible. So, we had a discussion in the pre-meeting about one of the items on my memo, and if we need to address that again, I'd be more than happy to do that. But this was what was provided from the planning commission discussion, and they did recommend final plat approval, which is that one plat change. Any questions for me?
Was sewer capacity talked about at all for this subdivision? Do we have appropriate sewer capacity?
We absolutely do, yes.
Thank you. Do we have water approval from Taylor West Weaver Water?
Yep, Taylor West Weaver and Hooper Irrigation.
And Hooper Irrigation, and they're okay with providing water to the
They
subdivision?
are. There's quite a bit of, this is a long time coming relative to dealing with the existing irrigation water, how it historically have moved through this area, but as mentioned in one of the staff's memos, they've received written approvals from all the water users in the area that they agree with how it's being handled in terms of ditches around and turnouts and other things, so.
Thanks.
You didn't address the thing we talked about in the pre-meeting about the sewer.
I didn't, it's up, if you'd like to do that, we can do that.
Okay.
You would?
Yeah, I definitely
I
would.
think that'd be good.
I definitely would.
Address that.
So, at the very beginning of this process, Public Works and myself, we sat down and said, okay, where's the vacuum sewer gonna tie to? And the only place to tie to is at 4,000 South, which is a state highway, which has been recently overlaid. And typically when that happens, there's some moratorium in terms of how you can cut the pavement, once it's overlaid. Public Works had just had a very similar incident just a little bit to the east with a private resident who needed to tie into the vacuum sewer, and UDOT would not let that happen for that private resident, and we ended up finding an alternative for that person. There is no alternative for this subdivision. So we made that clear from the beginning. You're gonna have to, understand that there are certain ways that this vacuum sewer can be built and tied to, and there are certain limits in terms of how long it can be turned off, and so on and so forth. And what it really boils down to is we don't see that there's any way to actually make the connection without an open trench out to where our main is to tie in. In our final response, we felt like that could be dealt with through an encroachment permit that only the contractor can get. And if they can't get the open cut, they don't have an adequate approach to how we build that, in which case it wouldn't be able to be built. But if they could get the encroachment permit from UDOT that would allow the open cut, we felt like we could address that before any construction was permitted. Now maybe we kick the can down the road, I don't know. We reached out today and said, look, there's some members of the city leadership that have an issue with that. What's going to be done to make that better? Give us approval, or give you approval to cut the road. Right about about 3:45 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, we started to hear that, oh, the city will write a letter saying the only way to do this is with open cut, then UDOT will consider it. Well, none of us were available to write a letter then, and so apparently there is a path forward, but at this point in time, it's not there. That was the last thing I heard, but one way or another, and I'll emphasize this, one way or another, it was not gonna move forward, whether it be here or whether it be after this, without having the ability to open cut that road. And we, UDOT can be stubborn. In fact, I was on a 2-hour call with them today over a project, Zoom call. But in the end, you typically get some common sense, relative to how things have to happen. But again, we do not have that. But we would have forced it after the fact. So not my recommendation, but if you decide to move this forward, that should be a condition of nothing goes to pre-construction until that's in place. Because that's the next step from here.
Right. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, do we have someone here representing the Morning Meadows subdivision? If you would just state your name and address.
Brad Buse, 5666 West 4000 South, here in Hooper.
Okay, do any of the council have any questions for Brad? I would guess my only question would be what Tracy has talked about. When I review this, it does, the comments that were sent back to you a while back required that there be some type of an agreement with UDOT and how critically important it is. It's not like you can just shut down a vacuum type system. When you shut it down, and the way it's attached to the system itself, it requires an open cut. So I think it's, I guess the question is, from what Tracy told us, you're working on getting that, but right today, there's no approval letter from UDOT to open cut 4,000 South.
It was our understanding for months that we had the option of open trench or bore, or to bore in. There was a discussion that the city, I think it was probably Tracy or Jared, I'm not sure which, they were concerned about the height of the sewer line we're connecting to a 4,000 South, and they had requested that we, bore a hole from the top and find out what that elevation is in connection with the elevation of the sewer lines were. We thought, and Tracy brought that up probably 8 or 9 months ago and told us it was, seeing our side of it, that, we may have to stop construction when you've got all the equipment out there to solve that problem. So I thought, well, we either need to solve it now or wait till we start construction and take a chance. In our discussions with UDOT, they didn't want us to bore, they would allow us to bore a hole to find out the elevation, but they requested we didn't do that until we started construction, actual construction on the site. So that wasn't an option for us to do that prior to. Obviously, I thought our options, UDOT was okay until this morning. We thought we were fine.
The purpose of that borehole, that pothole, was determine the elevation so we could make sure that the profile in the drawings were gonna match.
Right.
Didn't have anything to do with the boring. And Jared and I have never ever said a boring is permitted.
Well, I use the wrong word. I'm talking about just come on the top 4,000 South to run a scope down.
Yeah, then that's a pothole, and that, and we
So when I
did
said
require
boring,
that, so so that when we knew exactly where you were tying in, so we could make sure the plan showed that exactly, but it didn't indicate that.
Two
We've never
different
been asked,
types of
actually.
boring, right, Trey? We're talking about two different types of boring.
Well, this is a pothole bore down to line pipe, and the other's a lateral
And
bore.
the other's a lateral bore.
I should use the word pothole, so not to confuse anyone. So boring is when you're going through a tiny sewer.
Right.
Pothole where you can determine the height of the sewer line, this, the influence out and south. So, I mean, we thought, we were ready to go. I was kind of surprised this morning when I got that letter. We got our UDOT approval March 19th, and about 5 months prior to that, the cities have the drawings without making that comment until the morning of today. And so, because of what it's kind of clear, I guess I just request that, we're happy to resolve the situation. And all that can be resolved, we're done. It's got to be resolved. UDOT's either got to open trench, we've got to figure out something and comply with requests from Jared and Tracy, and we're happy to do that. Obviously, that could be something to be completed before the pre-construction meeting, signed off, okay, by the city staff, make sure that everyone's happy. So that's the request, I guess, that I have for the council this evening, so we can just move forward. We're about 2.5 years into this project now, and so we'd like to move forward with it. And we're happy to comply with whatever they need. It's an engineering issue. It's not something that really has to be signed off or looked at necessarily by the city staff or the council, other than the engineers and probably Jared. Be happy to comply and for that to be a condition of approval.
Okay, are there any other questions you have for Brad?
One thing that was also, Cindy was there, that was discussed at the commission meeting is the fence on the east side. Do you remember that, Cindy? And I mentioned, I said, whatever Nathan Hall, because they own about 4 acres there to the east of us, whatever they want us to do, we will do. Okay, if they want a privacy fence, we'll put that in. If they want a chain link, or if they want no fence. So I've had 2 meetings with Nathan, his wife Nicole, and his mother Pam, and I actually had our engineers draw exactly where the property line is. There are a lot of trees there that the hulls have enjoyed for years and years, and they hate to see those trees come down. Unfortunately, a number of those trees are right on the property line. So I took over to Nathan Hall. I said, Nathan, here's a property line, here's a color, here's an aerial of exactly the property line is. What do you want to tear down the trees and put a fence in? Do you want to leave the trees? What would you like to do? Okay, and I says, I told the commissioners, it's up to you. We'll do whatever you want, and he opted to not put a fence in. So they want to keep the trees there. They do kind of provide a natural barrier there by the property line, because there's a lot of those are right on the irrigation, east bank irrigation ditch, a lot of trees on them. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, and we'll probably, make that change. I'm not sure if we have a fence on there on the plat.
No, you don't.
Do we don't? Okay, so I probably need to bring it up. Okay, I apologize for taking your time, so.
That's just your fence that you normally do on a subdivision, right?
Well, the city requires a fence if it's a dissimilar use.
Okay.
Residential against residential, they don't require a fence, but if it's residential, agricultural, residential business, there's gotta be a fence.
That their property is out the east side.
They're on the east side, and they have about 4 acres or something like that.
Okay.
And, we've known her for 3 generations, and I just told them, I said, what do you want us to do, we'll do it.
Yeah.
So, I opted not to.
So Brad, question about that. So you say the trees are on the property line, so they're partially on your side and partially on the whole side?
Both.
Okay.
There's a lot of trees in there.
So say for example, hypothetically speaking, when somebody buys a lot from you and it becomes their property, What if they don't want the tree on their property anymore and they say tear it down?
I explained that to Nathan. I says, Nathan, if those trees are on their lot, they can tear them off. The problem is, it shows on here, there's a ditch, and the property line doesn't, it goes on the east side of the ditch and the west side of the ditch. If it was right down the middle, it'd have been a lot easier, but it jogs both ways. Actually, Nathan's dad was a surveyor, and Nathan helped his dad survey years and years ago, his dad Jay. So it's kind of an issue, so yeah, but I twice as Nathan, if we don't put a fence there, okay, in some places on your west property line, those trees, some of those trees could come down if they decide they want to put a fence in. Well, if they just want to tear the trees down, they can.
Right.
So, I tried to explain to Mara all the pros and cons, and, they're concerned about dogs, and maybe just put a fence up there just to keep their dogs from getting in the neighbor's yard and stuff, but,
So when does that become an issue with the city?
I was gonna say,
You know what I mean?
this really isn't, Nathan Hall's call.
Right.
It's your call.
Right.
It's the council's call about this fence.
Mhm.
And
no,
so,
it's not a dissimilar use. It's residential. Behind my house, there was no fence. Half-acre lots, no fence.
That's right.
I think that's why we didn't push it during preliminary,
Yeah.
because we consider the piece to the east to be residential,
similar.
so it's really ag.
Yeah,
It's only when it's just
there's
similar.
no,
Yeah.
House.
there's no ordinance that applies to putting a fence up.
And the ordinance doesn't.
Well, just to the back of it, it's open property, but it's still residential, so.
Residential use.
I'm happy, if they want a fence, I'm happy to put a fence.
sure,
I just don't want the city to be on the hook for tearing down trees and putting up a fence at some point in the future when they say, hey, where's our fence? Or where's our...
who decides, I
Yeah.
guess, whoever buys it works that out, what half the tree they
Yeah,
own, or
exactly.
If the trees on the property, want to put a fence in, they gotta tear the trees down. Or put the fence 10 feet in from the front.
Somebody's residential backyard.
Yeah.
That's up to them.
That'll be a fight between them,
Well,
if it ever is.
Somebody will probably put a fence up.
Yeah. Yeah, but the city's not involved.
No.
It's not the city's call.
I think that needs to be clear, though. You know what I mean? It should be,
In the cell of the lot,
right.
It's an ordinance, so it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Or regarding the trees.
On the land use change, then it is clear, there's no question about the fence, but I don't, as long as it doesn't come back to the city.
If he comes to me in 2 weeks and changes his mind, wants a fence, I says, Nathan, we'll put a fence in at our cost. Okay. So if they change their mind, and I told him it twice, you know, if you change your mind and you want a fence, we'll put a fence. It'll be right on the property line, and tear down all those trees, put a fence in, and we'll do it. He understands that, that's one of his options. And irregardless of what the city's told him, I committed to him, we'll put in next spring, so we decide on the fence, we'll put it in.
So I guess as long as it's clear that it's their problem,
Yeah.
right? As long as
In-
it's clear that.
In writing.
Yeah.
Well, it's an ordinance,
Yeah.
it's an ordinance.
The trees aren't in the ordinance.
No, but.
Well, dirt isn't in the ordinance either, a lot of things aren't in the ordinance. You know, irrigation
Well,
is-
look,
Well, the ordinance doesn't require a fence, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the ordinance requires a fence.
Well, if there's a land use change, it doesn't. Where there's 2 residential lots, then it doesn't.
See, we've got.
So as long as it's in the minutes, Shauna, that this was discussed and that it's put back on the developer, that any of this fence, tree, issues that would come up would have to be resolved there. It would not come back to the city. Is that
Correct.
good with the council?
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks.
So back to the UDOT issue. Have you been in contact with UDOT? Have you?
Oh, yes,
And-
the moment we got that email, because it really became a surprise, and so we got right on it, our Jeremy at Reeves called them, we got on the phone with them.
So
But
what's,
I have the comment from the planning commission October 8th.
what's your timeline for getting an
Same thing.
encroachment permit, perhaps? Are they giving you a timeline? Do you know
We don't,
how soon anything's coming forth? Or?
I mean, I'm not gonna make,
Like Tracy said, they can be stubborn, and that means
Yeah, they can.
quite some time sometimes.
They've been pretty good with it overall. Usually, one thing I like about UDOT, usually they're predictable. So it's, you know, but they can carry a big stick.
What we'd like to do is we'd like to, Jared and I didn't get a chance to even talk about it because he was elsewhere this afternoon and I was on a Zoom call with UDOT from 3 to 5 on a $10 million project I'm working on. But we'd like to have an opportunity to talk about this letter that they want from the city, see if that goes in, whether they will send something back even before a contractor's involved that said we will permit an open trench. Because right now the plans that we have, they noted all the things they got back from UDOT. And item number 8 in this list of notes says no road cut is permitted. And so, you know, that says that on the plan. We'd like to be able to have them be able to change that before we get a whole lot further. But again, all of that, we intended to kind of work all of that out before we even allowed any construction to move forward or even a pre-construction meeting. So
We're happy to.
And I think Tracy said earlier, I mean, my understanding was that because of the implications and what your thoughts were, you had checked the box and said we'll move forward because pre-construction, they can't do anything without the ability to connect either way. So.
I was surprised that UDOT would even say if the city will send a letter, we'll consider it. Because typically, they won't even talk about their permit until they have a contractor come in and apply. And at that point, we were going to say, okay, does your permit allow open cut? If not, go back and fight it out because you can't do anything else. And because I can't, as an engineer, go in and get an encroachment permit. I can get a list of things that they say they can't, will, and will not allow, but they won't give me a permit to build anything in there. So.
Well, the fact they requested that letter, you know, means that I think they're going to entertain it, but I'm not going to sit and tell you if it's going to be tomorrow or a week. But obviously, we'll have to work it out prior to a pre-construction meeting. And,
the uniqueness of the vacuum sewer, there's very specific grade that has to be met. There's very specific ways in which it's connected from one pipe to another that require some space. And even though borings under the roads can be pretty good, you still got to get out there and have enough room to use all these fittings to make these connections. And you can't get started and be partway done and say, well, we don't have enough room, we're just going to leave this off. You can't leave it off for more than a few hours. So that was kind of the concern mentioned right from the beginning. It's just a unique situation.
Any other questions for Brad?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
So as part of our discussion, I just hope there's not any misunderstanding. I mean, I want it to be clear that they were talking about two different types of borings. One boring to find the elevation of the pipe. UDOT saying, we'll let you connect to the sewer with a bore, by boring a hole in. Hooper City saying, we can't connect the sewer that way. We have to have an open cut. We have to have a trench with room, like Tracy just described. So that's what the city's looking for, is UDOT to allow that to happen.
So our two options are, number 1, table it till we get that letter, or number 2, put a condition on an approval, or if we do approve it, that needs to be a condition.
And Tracy, just so I can understand what I think you said. So typically you can't get a permit to do that cut unless you have your contractor in place to ask for that permit, is that correct?
You submit your plans, and it goes in for their review, and then they send back their comments, and those comments end up with a list of conditions that they require. But in terms of an actual permit to encroach with the right of way and build something, that's a contractor that applies for that, yes.
So you'd have to wait till construction's close to where
Yeah,
we're trying to get rolling.
and they'd have to have their contractor hired, we'd have to have a developer agreement, an escrow estimate, and, you know, and all the things in place. And it's just not there, so right now, we're saying, well, then go in there as a developer and the engineer and fight this out, and get us something that says that this isn't that issue, that it really will happen, so.
Is there any other discussion?
Well, I don't know about discussion. I mean, I would think you would definitely want to know before you started if you could cut into the road or not. So my inclination would be to table it because I don't think that's going to delay, if they're in the works, for getting the permit. That would assure that we did have the permit. I believe we're trying to get away from the conditions that we place on approvals. So my inclination would be to table it until that letter and the issue is resolved, till they have a encroachment permit.
Is that a motion?
Oh,
Do you want to?
well, I can make that motion. I just thought
Now, we need to be clear, I don't think you're gonna get an encroachment permit. What we might get back is some clarification relative to what UDOT will and will not allow. But that's not an encroachment permit.
Well, I'll make that motion then. We table it. Table the final approval of Morning Meadow subdivision until we get a clarification letter from UDOT to connect to.
Allow the open.
What they
allow
allow an open cut.
Allow an open cut.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, so we have 4 in favor, 1 opposed. So that will be the final letter, final approval letter will be denied until, well, it'll be tabled, excuse me, it'll be tabled until we have a letter from UDOT clarifying that there can be an open cut on 4,000 South to attach the sewer.
Can I just ask for a clarification? And maybe I could just deal with the mayor this way, but they have asked that if we feel that strongly about what the means and methods for construction are, and that is an open cut, that we as a city write something to say this is the only way this can happen, the only way it can work. Are we okay to do that?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Oh,
if the council, we would provide that letter saying that's the only way we can attach to the.
It's the only fair thing to do, yes, yeah.
right.
Do you want to amend your motion?
Should I amend my motion?
Well,
Yeah, you could authorize the letter to her.
We're good.
Okay,
I don't think you need to.
okay.
So does that require a motion to
No,
authorize that?
you're willing to do it.
Yeah.
Sure,
Okay.
okay, we'll do that. Okay, well, that's the last item on the agenda as far as city business. We do have a time for citizens' comment that, again, if anyone would like to come up and make a comment, we would ask that you want to take 3 minutes and just come to the microphone, state your name and address. So at this time, we'll open it up for citizens' comments.
My name is Brad Turner. I live at 5027 West, 5350 South in Hooper. You guys have a tough job. I come with 3 concerns. I hope.
Sorry.
Time's up.
It's just turning on.
With the cool weather, I just want a reminder, I don't know the solution to this, but trash burning in the evening is terrible around my house. I cannot open my windows. It just smolders and it stinks. It's not a campfire, that's fine. I'm good with recreation fires, but this is smoldering, burn cans, pits, or whatever. And I understand it's illegal. I've tried to drive around, without a drone or something elevated, you cannot see these things. But it's a concern, and any help I would appreciate. Second concern, the snow coming and snow removal. my subdivision has two terrible problems. The one is on-street parking, especially both sides. I watched the poor guy in the snowplow. He's trying to maneuver. When they finally do move the cars, there are large snowbanks, and if you don't see them, you hit them in your car and about destroy your suspension. The last concern I have is snow being put into the streets, especially after the snowplow's been there. And then you come driving down at nighttime and it's hard ice chunks and you hit it.
Are you talking from residences?
Residents. I have about half of my neighbors that push the snow into the street, and then tons of them that park on the street, which I believe that if there's impending snow, that's illegal to do between, I don't know, 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. I'm not sure the hours. Yeah, but if there's snow, can you park during the daytime if there's snow removal that's impending? I'm not sure about that. Anyways, those are my concerns. I don't know what the solution is. The burn barrels I've approached before, and I would like a little firmer action. The snow removal, I would like a friendly approach. You know, a warning, something on the windshield of the car, or just a friendly thing that you can't do this. And I see it in the newsletter, which is great, but I don't think a lot of people read it to understand that.
Okay, so you mentioned something right there that I didn't hear at first. You're aware of burn barrels? They're not just out burning leaves.
No, this is, it
burn
always
barrels
starts,
for
as
the-
soon as the sun goes down, then they light up.
And burn garbage in a
They're
barrel.
burning, it's garbage. It's not nice pine. I have neighbors that have recreational fires, and I'm fine. I have those in my house, and that's fine. This is stinky, smoldering. It could be straw, it could be manure, it could be household trash, wet trash, and I don't know how far it progressed, but where I live, in that area, this has been going on for 12 years. It's getting a little better, but I know there's certain residents that still do it. I can't identify who they are because I can't trespass and go snoop in their backyard to find who they are. If I had a drone and it was legal, I'd fly over the top, you could look down and probably see the glow of the fires, but I don't have any of that stuff.
Which subdivision are you in?
Jenny's Park.
Tell me where that
Do you know where the secondary irrigation pond is?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh.
My backyard is adjacent to that wonderful pond.
Okay.
They take immense care of it. It's clean. Anyways, I live in that subdivision there, and one entrance is typically clogged with RVs and trailers on both sides of the street, numerous, and just getting in there is tight. But I watch your snowplow drivers, and I feel for them. I'm thinking they're going to hit one of these cars one of these times. And I'm not sure what the liability there is, but anyways, I would like that addressed, but I would like it initially kindly addressed with the warning that you cannot do this because people have moved here and they may not be aware. Anyways, those are my three concerns. I have one comment. I listened to this thing about Parker Farms. I have no dog in this fight, and I'm sitting back, listening back and forth. I've lost a good neighbor across the street, leaving Hooper to a community just north of here, because he cannot find a 1 acre lot to build on. So he's left Hooper after 12 years, and I'm sad to see him going. A second is I thought, is there a compromise? And I thought, is there a compromise to maybe, if there's acre lots here, a new developer, that he has to put acre lots adjoining the acre, and then he and his development can drop down to half or a third or whatever it is, trying to appease the developer and the landowner, but also those residents who are there now to abut their property with acres. Just a question. I don't have any answers at all, but you guys have a tough job. Anyways, thanks.
Thank you.
So what is our parking ordinance during the winter time? Does it? I can't remember.
So between like about, November and March, we don't allow on-street parking.
At all? Doesn't have to do with impending storm or
Not
anything like
really,
that?
no, or it could be an impending storm, I'll have to double check on that, but.
It's just needs no overnight
I think it's
parking,
an impending
but it is a storm thing.
Yeah, so, we address it in the newsletter, and then,
What a big, great big red letter.
Sure.
I see it every year.
So in the past, like in areas that have been of like, like people are like real concerned, we have written off letters from the sheriff's department, and we know that there are subdivisions of concern. We give those letters directly to the sheriff's department, and they go out and put them in some mailboxes. So, if we are aware that that's a real issue, like, I made a note now, so I'll make sure that we, as storm season approaches, I'll make sure that we get that out to
I
you.
got some
Not
answers for
people that, not park on the streets for you.
That would be wonderful.
As far as the burn barrels, if you could help us pinpoint that,
drive around and look,
Yeah.
it's like, I can't physically see it, but
We
I can
have put
sure
in
smell
that
it.
same recommendation in the newsletter before, so we'll try to put that in there again.
So if somebody's parking a trailer, do you just contact the sheriff directly?
They know enough to, so.
Yeah, I think we're aware.
Or is it somebody that takes the trailer?
2 days during the summertime.
Around my house.
Give them one first.
Can I just address something real quick?
Sure.
I didn't catch your name, sir. Brad. He's talked about it as part of maybe a less harsh thing. So we go out and put flyers on people's cars. Usually this time of year, before the snow falls, we like to go and put flyers out on the vehicles that are parked in the road. And then as it snows and that, then we start moving into writing citations and things like that. So as far as that goes, if you have an issue with burn barrels going in your neighborhood, feel free to call us and we can try to pinpoint where that's coming from.
Oh.
And the fire department's always interested in those things.
Yeah, they are.
Not just sometimes, they're always harvested.
The sheriff can go walk into the backyard too.
Oh,
And a quick thought, I noticed as you go into Roy City, you have signs that specify the winter overnight parking lot communities. I haven't seen that put or a sign by the road that said, no on-street parking November 15th to, I don't know, March, April 15th. That may be something that might be considered to, I don't know, do you see it around the area?
We do, I honestly would, to be honest with you, Hooper is not one of the areas that we have a huge problem with because a lot of the neighborhoods and streets, which is changing, are, they have such a wide shoulder, not undeveloped, but unfinished, no sidewalk together. That's changing a lot in Hooper. So we don't, it's not a huge problem out there in Hooper that we have, it's starting to get more prevalent around here, but that is an option. I have seen those signs that say used to be code and stuff. And we try on our Facebook page and stuff, to get kind of social media stuff.
okay, all right. We appreciate that. That signage was a good idea, good reminders. Any other comments?
Can we be on the agenda for 2 weeks? Because I think,
Well,
how's that going to work?
we'll have you
Call Shauna.
call in. Any other?
Just call Shauna. Pretty much everything goes to her.
Sheldon Greener, 5638
South,
South.
west, sorry about that.
I know I kind of got beat up before about saying that you guys rubber stamp stuff. It's not, whatever, but I do appreciate the discussion that was had tonight. I think that was probably one of the best meetings that I've been to as far as seeing things not at least appear to be that way. I'm not saying you guys did it in the past or whatever. I'm just saying that the impression a lot of people get, and obviously some people still aren't happy. Not everybody's going to be happy, but I do just want to say I appreciate the discussion about things, and that from my point of view, it was, it was discussed in a way that makes sense and didn't appear to be just rubber stamped. So thanks.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment time, and there's no other items on the agenda. We'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn, we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second.